welcome to the 9th episode of Recluse Horror. This is a daily horror movie review podcast. Just a little background. On my birthday in April of last year, I decided I wanted to watch and review a horror movie every single day. I have done so for the past 276 days. The first many days were in text form. This is only the 9th episode of the podcast. With me, as usual, is Sam.
Hey.
So today we watched The Addiction from 1995. It stars Lily Taylor. It also has Edie Falco and Christopher Walken. It's directed by Abel Ferrara, who's best known for Bad Lieutenant as well as King of New York. So what did you think about the movie?
I liked the movie.
Did you?
Yeah.
I thought it was good. I think I was in the absolute wrong mood to watch it right now. Again, long day, little sleep, very tired, as per usual. So basically the plot of the movie is this. A graduate student studying philosophy becomes a vampire and has to sort of come to terms with her newfound addiction to blood. Is that a pretty good description?
Yeah, pretty much as a movie, yeah.
For those of you already angry that I told you it was a vampire movie, I apologize, but it happens so quickly in this movie that it's impossible to talk about otherwise, and also it's not really a spoiler. So what did you think about the addiction metaphor of the movie? How did you think that was applied? At
some points it was a little too, heavy-handed.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, a little too spot on. But I think later in the movie and later on, it's more general, a general addiction.
Yeah.
There's too many metaphors, to, sexual addiction or drug abuse. And I think later on in the movie, it does a better job of making it just a general idea of addiction. Mm-hmm. Just to have
addictive behavior.
Yeah. And I like that a lot better. I actually like the second half a lot better than the beginning half.
I did as well.
Story-wise, at least. The visuals through the whole movie are pretty great. Pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah, that's actually... I didn't take very many notes for this, because there's just not a whole lot of different notes that you really need to focus on for this one. I felt like it's so strong on that addiction metaphor. But, my very last note was great imagery, but a little too close in at times. By that I mean some of the shots... many of the shots, actually, are very close in. They're, above waist height and up. I don't really know why they did that. There weren't always reasons that I felt like close quarters or anything like that felt like they had no choice but to film very close in. It wasn't a real problem, and many of the shots were very good. The lighting was really good. Did you like the lighting? Did you notice it?
It's in black and white.
So lighting is always much easier to detect when it's done well in black and white.
And I don't know, for some of the close quarter stuff, I think had to do with trying to make the movie seem a little more
personal,
personal, claustrophobic, a little just more maybe straightforward, maybe more connected. So you seem more connected to the idea. Because that's usually when they were used, was for personal revelations or somebody doing something like that, or somebody reacting to something.
And those make sense.
Because there was long shots. There was really good long shots of stuff.
The few that they had were very good. I just felt like there were too many. Yes, there were definitely reasons focusing on facial expressions and reactions and anything like that actually did make sense, but I felt like there weren't enough. It made the movie feel penned in, and I don't think that was always the right sort of tone to go for in all cases.
Yeah, maybe not in all cases. I think to be honest, I think it helped. I think it made the movie
more personal.
Yeah, seem more personal.
It.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's really kind of what the movie's about.
Yeah.
Human nature and humanity.
Yeah. So as I had mentioned before, Lily Taylor plays the lead, and she's a philosophy grad student. She's working on her doctorate. And this movie has so much philosophy in it. If you are a fan of philosophy, this is absolutely your movie.
I thought it was not your movie.
Conversely, I was just going to say, if you don't like Jean-Paul Sartre or some of the conclusions that they draw from this movie, which I feel like a lot of philosophy students wouldn't agree with the way things were interpreted, then you might hate it. But it would still be interesting, and it would still be something I feel like you should watch.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, like, a short review of this would be, like, pretty good movie. Could have done without the Philosophy 101.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. That's the
a lot of Nietzsche talk.
Version. Nietzsche, Jean-Paul Sartre,
Yeah.
they mention, what's his name? Crap, I can't remember what his name is. There's
some Dante quotes in there.
There are. The Dante quotes were good. I liked that.
Well, he's not a philosopher necessarily.
No, he's a poet. That's why
that's why it's
enjoyed
good.
it. Yeah,
that's why
exactly.
It's good.
He's a poet.
But yeah, some of that was just a little too heavy-handed. Some of it was just like, it's like, oh, do you really need to throw all these quotes into this movie for some reason? Like,
right. Well, and the thing that got me is, like, everybody was a philosopher. Like, do you remember that random person that she ran into who just happened to be, like, who later on displayed, quoted a philosopher? I don't remember who it was. Might have been Sartre. I can't remember. But, like, for no reason should she have any... No, it was Dante. I guess it was poetry, so it's a little bit different, but she applied it in a way that was clearly philosophical.
Yeah.
No, sorry. Those are two separate scenes that I'm thinking of.
Oh.
One was a Dante one. One was a philosophy quote.
Okay.
Was a legitimate philosophy quote. It's weird because that specific quote is actually kind of a spoiler in and of itself.
Yeah, if you think about it.
Yeah, it sort of speaks to the conclusion of the movie.
But anyways, there's probably its biggest failing is there's too much philosophy talk, especially when you're like following the movie or like they say the quote slowly, or you could tell they're trying to remember the quote.
Yeah,
because it's not like quotes people would just remember. They're like stuff you would read.
Right.
You'd be like,
right.
oh, I'm reading this quote because, no one talks like this anymore. It's not.
Yeah, so you could sometimes see the actors trying to remember the exact phrasing of the quote.
Yeah, the exact words, yeah.
Which is sort of harder because they're used to dialogue, which is pretty natural. Even if it's not your particular method of speech, you can remember it more easily, I
For
would assume.
me, that's probably the only thing I didn't like. I think I liked pretty much everything else, like a lot.
I felt the philosophy was just a little... They laid it on too thick.
Yeah, it was nice that it was there and gave it depth.
Yes.
But they just laid it on too thick and it didn't play naturally.
No, it didn't.
And that was...
So many people... Like, even that archaeology student, was making quotes. Again, I don't think it was from a philosopher, but it was applied in a philosophical manner.
Yeah.
Which is just not something that a lot of people do all the time. So, yeah, it definitely doesn't feel true to life in that way, which is funny because that's, the whole thing is about addiction, which is just such a human thing.
Well, when they do that, it gives the whole movie kind of a surreal type of feel.
It does.
But
and
the movie's not
nice.
surrealistic in any other way than that.
No.
So it's just, maybe if there was a little bit more surrealism in the movie, it would play as kind of like a skewed reality.
Right.
And if that was the case, I'd probably like it more.
Yeah.
But the movie is like played straight, played for realism as much as any movie really, I guess. Like, I mean, it's not...
It's clearly supposed to be some, metaphorical.
Yeah. But just the actions and...
Yeah, the things that happen are not like... All of the things that happen are things that happen. They aren't, oh, this is a symbol for some... I mean, they are symbols, but they aren't like... This cannot be interpreted literally. There's none of that. Everything can be interpreted literally or surface value-wise. So, yeah, I thought for me personally, because I missed some of the philosophical talk in the beginning. One of the people that we were watching it with, wasn't super interested and ended up leaving partway through the movie. But I was a little bit distracted. So I think that might have had an effect on my particular perception of parts of the movie. But I think my favorite part was the imagery. I think the black and white looked very good. The way they applied it looked very good. And the blood, even though it's not in color or anything like that, was very, everybody in the film, most of the people in the film were very pale, so there was a real pop to the blood. So if you're looking for sort of bloody, gory imagery, I mean, it's not gory, but, the bloody imagery on people very pale and wearing usually nice clothes, was kind of just neat. It popped. The contrast. I liked the contrast in a lot of the shots.
Okay, so the movie was made in 1995.
Yes.
It's in black and white.
Yeah.
They talk about philosophy through the whole thing.
Yeah.
But it's not like that artsy of a movie.
No, it's not. It's very digestible I mean, it sounds
that was
so
the weirdest part
to
me, is that it's not that artsy of a movie.
No.
Which is, not a bad thing. It's it's very digestible. A little too digestible.
In certain respects, for
respects,
sure.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of interesting that way, that it's kind of easy to watch.
Yeah.
But yet it has all these things that kind of make it feel like it wouldn't be.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that, actually. I hadn't really thought about that specific angle, but it is very digestible. It sounds like the least approachable movie ever, with, heavy-handed, so much of it is dedicated to this philosophy.
But it's so over, it's so,
repetitious?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get it, even like you were saying, you weren't even paying attention to the beginning,
right?
And it's still obvious what the movie is about.
I mean, it's
obvious the themes, right. all those quotes, missing parts of them here and there doesn't matter,
right?
It's just a pretty simple story. I like it for that reason,
yeah,
because the aesthetic is good, and it's not overly complicated,
right?
Like I like complicated artsy-esque movies.
Me too.
But it was nice that this was kind of that, but also kind of not that.
Yeah.
It was like a good change or pace for this type of movie.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely they one of the things that was interesting is there's a particular scene where Lily Taylor's character is talking about philosophy generally, very broadly, and is saying something to the effect of, basically, like, the whole point of getting your philosophy out there, by its very nature, has to be in order to influence opinion. And I feel like that's what this movie did. If you take all of the quotes and the way that they're applied, and whether they're supposed to be something that the movie finds true or the movie finds false, you do get a very clear image of the message that they're trying to get across. And I felt like that particular scene was a very nice touch to put in there. Saying, yeah, basically the filmmaker saying, yes, we are trying to influence your opinion. This isn't just, oh, it's an artsy thing that happens to come to this conclusion, and, like, you drew that because you picked it out of here. No, they're framing your perception. And I did appreciate that, because sometimes films try to pretend like, it's nothing specific. You're supposed to take away what you want to, or whatever. And this film didn't do it. It very clearly stated through its character that, yes, it has a specific philosophy to spread, and that's
and there
what it's
is
doing.
That in the movie, because some filmmakers say that, and then it's impossible to digest what it is, regardless
what their message is. God damn you, David Lynch. He's got a couple of good ones. But yeah, no, exactly. They do the opposite, where they try to make something and say, oh, you can come away with a message here. There really is something that I'm trying to say with this, but you're not smart enough, or you're not intuitive enough to figure out what it is, even though it's clearly nonsense garbage. David Lynch.
This is the opposite of that.
This is the opposite of
that. A little too opposite.
In a certain
because
way.
It just makes the movie feel a little repetitive.
One note.
Yeah, one note and repetitive.
Yeah.
But it does help you understand the movie and understand the ideas.
It does.
And, like, to me, it also, like, and this might not even be a thing, but, like, like, the fact that it was black and white when there was clearly color.
Color was accessible to them.
Yeah, exactly.
Abel
just
Ferrara has done many color films.
Helps drive the idea of, like, there not being good and evil.
Yeah.
And within it being black and white.
Right.
they talk a lot about
the nature of evil.
yeah, like wars, and they have a whole like art installation within the movie,
right,
that is black imagery as well,
right,
and it helps fold the art to reality, and so on and so forth. Yeah, stuff like that. Little stuff like that was really good, and it wasn't undigestible. It was obvious that it was there. It was good that it was there. You know, it made you feel like they were making the movie and they had an idea of what the movie wanted to be.
Yeah, they did. They had a very clear vision for what they were trying to make, it felt like. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think as far as, you know, movies that are symbolic and philosophical and, you know, have all these high-minded ideas, I feel like this is a very approachable one. If you're not a person who is generally drawn to those, or if you're not somebody who usually appreciates those when they do see them, you may not appreciate this one either, but it definitely has a different level of accessibility than most, you know, art house films or stuff like that. Did you have anything else that you wanted to say about it?
We just talk about the acting.
Yeah. Yeah, what did you...
I thought it was mostly good. Yeah. I can't really think of anybody who was bad.
There were a couple of small parts, but I mean, nothing terrible.
You know, it's mostly, I'm sorry, what's her name?
Lily Taylor.
Yeah, Lily Taylor, who's been in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought she was good. It mostly follows her, so it's really just her doing stuff. Right. And her freakouts are good.
Her freakouts are great.
Her other acting's pretty good, but her freakouts are really good.
Yeah, there's one particular.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I was gonna say it specifically, but I don't want to add too much. Spoil it. Yeah. Her freakouts are good. If you're a huge Christopher Walken fan, he's only in it for
it's like 2 scenes.
Yeah, and he's really good in it. It's nice to see him
in
going out of his hunk phase. But it's still nice to see the hunk in there a little still.
Just a touch of it. Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
I wish he was in it more, but it's still cool to see him. Nurse Jackie's in it. She's a supporting character.
Yeah, Edie Falco. She's probably the one who gets the second most screen time, maybe.
Yeah, but she doesn't do much. She doesn't have a lot to do.
It's
She's
mostly
still
the
okay.
Lily Taylor show.
It doesn't. Nobody. There's a lot of small acting. Yeah. And none of it really stands out, but none of it's bad.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. For those of you that don't know, Edie Falco, she was Nurse Jackie. Wrong.
Yeah,
I just tried to mess them up. Yeah, Nurse Jackie, that TV show, she played the nurse in Nurse Jackie. She's been in a number of other things too, but that's the thing that she's the most well known for. This is definitely a sort of more understated role than her role in what's it called? In Nurse Jackie.
Nurse Jackie,
yeah. So Lily Taylor, if you don't know her, she was she's in Hemlock Grove. If you watch the Netflix series Hemlock Grove, she was in The Conjuring. She was in The Haunting. She was probably the best part of The Haunting. I saw that when I was younger, and mind you, it has been a few years. Actually, quite a few years. More than 10, I think, since I saw it. But yeah, she's had a lot of horror roles. I don't think it's necessarily the only thing she does. She's done a number of other things, but yeah, she's very good. You probably would recognize her, if you saw her. And then Christopher Walken, he needs no introduction. Even people who've never seen a movie with him in it know him.
He is, yeah.
Yeah, I thought his scenes were very interesting. I kind of felt like they didn't really fit in with the whole rest of the movie, but I understand why they felt they needed to do them.
I like that about it, actually.
That it felt out of place. I kind of did too. Yeah. Beyond that, was there anything else that you wanted to talk about? I can't really think
of
anything.
Just how hunky Christopher Walken is in his younger days.
Yeah, so the thing that Sam is referring to by calling him...
a super hunk?
By calling him a super hunk is Natalie Wood. She was an actress back in the day. And she was on a boat with her husband. Was she married to? I don't want to say the wrong person here.
I can't remember his name.
I think
he's terrible.
Yeah, I'm going to pause and make sure. So Natalie Wood was married to Robert Wagner. He's another actor. And she was on a boat with him and Christopher Walken. And he was apparently, there is a theory going out there, of course it has not been confirmed, that she drowned on this boat. She was wearing weighted clothing and it felt very suspicious. They have, I think a year ago, they reopened the case, and I think they were looking at Robert Wagner. I'm not positive. Again, I don't know if he did it. I wasn't here or born, I think, when that happened.
I don't think so either.
But the theory behind his possible motive is that she was doing a movie with Christopher Walken at the time, and he was afraid.
Jealous.
Yeah, he was jealous that she was spending time with her hunky co-star, and literally hunky is the phrase for some reason that always gets used.
Yeah, in articles and stuff.
Which I have just never lived in a world where that was the case with Christopher Walken. I think he has very interesting features, but I would never have referred to him as hunky. I don't think I've ever really seen anything that he was young enough to be called hunky in. This is pretty close. I mean, and this is 95. I've got to have seen older stuff with him.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I've seen The Deer Hunter, and he's not hunky.
Not hunky.
In the Deer Hunter. Yeah.
I didn't see that one. But yeah, so that's what he keeps referring to, in case you were wondering. So, is that all?
Yeah, that's all. I
Okay.
like the movie.
Yeah.
Christopher Walken's pretty hunky in it. It's good. I actually liked it a lot. Probably one of those movies that kind of sticks with me more than others, just for visuals and
yeah, the visuals were great,
and somewhat of the philosophy within it.
Yeah,
that it tried to pull out of the movie. Yeah, I actually liked it a lot.
I also liked it. Again, the people that I would suggest it for, maybe not your average vampire fans. They might be a little annoyed by the lack of vampirism. I mean, there are vampires and vampire stuff, but it doesn't really feel like
it's kind of skewed.
It's so much of an addiction
yeah.
movie that it's very little of a vampire movie. But the imagery, the vampire imagery,
the gothic type of look is definitely there.
Yeah, the modern gothic sort of city weird thing that they had going. The aesthetic was interesting. I did like it. But yeah, I would say philosophy students would be, or anybody interested in philosophy should check it out, even if I think most people probably wouldn't agree with the conclusions this movie draws about its central themes. But yeah, is there anybody else you can think of who would be a good fit that we haven't mentioned?
I don't know. I'd probably recommend it to a lot of people just because I like it and I don't care if they don't like it.
Yeah, like me and Mother.
Yeah, so it's just one of those movies that it'd be hard to tell if you would like it or not like it until you watched it.
Yeah.
It has a lot of reasons I would think people would like it, but also there's a lot of specific things in it that is probably would completely turn somebody off.
Absolutely.
I feel like it's just that kind of movie, and that's probably why it's not more well known.
Yeah.
I had never heard of it until today.
Right. Yeah, I would agree. I think I've mentioned things like this in a few reviews recently, but yeah, it is one of those movies where you can say on a surface level, okay, people that I know might be interested in, parts of this movie, but depending on who they are, they will come away with a different movie and a different opinion, I think, a little bit. I mean, the themes of it are very solid, but depending on whether they agree with the philosophy is 100% whether they will enjoy it on that level. So, and
there's a lot of drug abuse tones that people and sexual abuse tones that people might not care for, and the conclusions they make in the movie about them, and so on and so forth. It seems in that way it's pretty divisive, or it could be. Yeah. It might not even be. I don't know. But
no, I think you're right.
But other than that, it's very digestible. It's very
So that was The Addiction. So every episode, in addition to the movie that I have just watched that night, I'm going to review a movie that I watched and reviewed already for the text reviews that I was doing. This particular one is called The Snowtown Murders. It's an Australian movie. And if the title sounds familiar, it's because it's based on a true case. It's one of the most infamous cases in the history of Australia, actually. The movie was very well made. It has great atmosphere and some really fantastic acting. But it's sometimes hard to follow, apparently, for people who that aren't familiar with the case. So, Sam, you were not familiar with the case.
No, not at all. I had never heard of it before.
That being said, how did you enjoy the movie?
Okay, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a minute since I've seen it. I remember liking it. Like, it's not a very long movie. It's about what is it?
I'm not sure. I actually thought it was sort of
longer. Was it sort of long? Okay, maybe it was sort of long. But I remember not thinking it was too long, especially since I was kind of lost with some of it. There's some interesting stuff in it, just on its own.
Yeah.
I just think overall it was kind of middling for me because I didn't know about the case, and there's stuff they left out. I guess is it what you were saying? There's like stuff they left out.
There is definitely stuff that they left out, and I will explain why in a minute, but let me get into the synopsis, sort of the movie, in as much as one can do so without spoiling it. Okay, so this one is actually pretty hard to sort of synopsize without giving away, vast plot details, so I guess I'll just say that it's about a murder case in Australia. I don't really know.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah. And I did just look it up. It's a 2-hour-long movie, which is actually, much longer than Sam thought it was.
Yeah.
So apparently the pacing was pretty good because his memory of it was that it was under an hour and a half. So like I said, I was familiar with the Snowtown case when I watched this movie. I didn't really know that they had this movie had been made. I had just listened to a podcast about this that went into minute detail about all of the details of the case. About 3 weeks before I did this movie, actually. So it was very fresh in my mind personally. The reason why I think they didn't go into a whole lot of detail about certain things or just sort of let the audience get it. This is an Australian movie, and like I said, this is one of the most infamous cases in Australian history. So there's no reason for them to beat people over the head with it, because almost everybody is at least pretty familiar with the case in Australia. It was all over the news. They, had daily, hourly updates, when it first happened. So being that this was primarily made for an Australian audience, I'm assuming, I just think they found it unnecessary to mention all those details. I think American audiences or, people not familiar with the case probably would have a little bit harder of a time with it. And Sam, you kind of did. There were parts... I know I had to explain a few things after the movie.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time remembering it, but there's certain motivations they don't tell you in the movie. Is that right?
Yeah, They don't do a very good job of explaining some of the,
motivations for people doing stuff. So something just happens, and you're just kind of like, it feels like it came out of nowhere, or...
Right.
Or you didn't understand why they did that, like stuff like that. And that's my biggest problem, because I don't know anything about the case or anything.
Right.
I think other than that, I really liked it, which sucks that makes such a big difference. Yeah, for me personally to enjoy the movie.
Yeah. It's also quite accurate to what I know about the case, which is really rare on movies, especially modern movies that are supposed to be based on a true story. There's definitely some minor differences. There's a lot that they try to explain more through, very small lines that if you missed that one line, you wouldn't necessarily get that perception if you aren't familiar with the case. This is not ideal for people who are not familiar with the case, of course. But honestly, I didn't think it was really that big of a deal. I remember I think Sam's memory of liking it is less than he actually did like it. The acting in the movie was really, really good. I felt like And it's particularly impressive when you consider that aside from 2 of the actors, the entire cast, including the one playing, it's a character named Jamie, who has most of the screen time and probably has the best performance. Everybody was locals from the area where the murders actually took place and had 0 acting experience. Lucas Pittaway, who's the one who played Jamie, has actually gone on to do work since, which totally doesn't surprise me. He was really good in this. Do you have any recollection specifically of the acting?
No, the acting was really good. It fit really well into the movie. The way it was shot, the feel of the movie, is very natural feeling, and the movie kind of leans that way. Yeah, to not over describe anything or over show anything.
There's some really gorgeous shots in the movie
definitely.
Too. Some very long. This is like the opposite of my problem with the addiction, where there's all these very nice, broad, wide open
very
shots.
Open.
Without feeling like they're just trying to fill time. I didn't feel like they were trying... Well, of course they're not. It's a 2-hour movie. They don't need to fill time. It helped the atmosphere and the mood
everything
quite a
felt
bit.
really natural and very simplistic. All the acting was really simple. Yes. Dialogue-wise. Yeah. But through,
which I liked. I thought it made it feel a lot more genuine.
It helped it. A lot of facial acting, which was really good. You felt the mood of each situation, which is kind of what this movie is about more than the murders. Yeah, absolutely. Themselves is the mood of the people who were involved or around. A lot of people that were around the situation it was about. Yeah. They capture the like people around the murders and the situation and just the way people reacted to it or felt about it, I guess, maybe. Yeah. It's pretty good at that. It's less about murders in a way. And
more about the sort of the community around the murders. And the environment in which it took place.
Yeah. And there's a lot of that's good, especially with the establishing shots that they have. Yeah. And stuff like that to build, like, your idea of the situation, your idea of the location, people's mindsets, and so on.
Right. Again, and I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that it is an Australian film made for Australian audiences. I think the people that are most definitely going to be interested in the case just by the very specific, by the title of the film, they're going to be interested in a lot more of the mood, the theme, the specific area encapsulating this weird part of time and this weird historical event. I mean, it's not historical, really. It didn't happen that long ago. I think it was in the 2000s, maybe 90s. Yeah, it's been a long time since I listened to the podcast or watched the movie. So my memory is much more foggy now about that. But yeah, it's more about showing all of the details that they're not getting from the news reports. They've heard about, the people involved in the case. They've heard about the victims. They've heard about the survivors. All of that stuff they know. So everything else about it is just encapsulating the feel and filling in the gaps that you're not going to get in a journal. Somebody giving you the details of the case is not going to give you a feel of the case in that sense. And that's what this movie does. It fills that void. Did you have anything else that you wanted to say about it? I can't remember.
I was looking up the director.
First movie.
Yeah, that was his first movie, and especially for that, it looks so good. Yeah. Apparently, he went on to direct the Assassin's Creed movie.
Oh, poor guy.
Which I don't want to watch, but I might just to see how it was directed and handled.
Because the directing is very strong in this movie.
Yeah, it makes me laugh a lot.
Oh my gosh.
And like a mean way, I laugh about it. Because, this movie, if for nothing else, is ambitious, and,
artful.
Probably a real hard thing to do, especially in the region.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Going on to directing the EA, right? EA game, Assassin's Creed.
Creed. It's not EA, that's Ubisoft.
Oh, it is Ubisoft, okay.
Yeah. But, same dicks, whatever. They're both assholes.
So, I don't know. It makes me laugh.
That's so depressing to me. I did not realize that. I did not realize that. Well, hopefully he'll, be able to do something a little...
You don't know. It could be mind-blowing.
It could be.
The Assassin's Creed movie could be mind-blowing.
It could.
I hear it's not, but it could be.
Oh, God. That makes me so depressed. This was, like I said, it was the first feature-length that he ever directed, and it was really impressive. It had a clear sense of what it wanted to be, and in my opinion, it really achieved that. For some people, I think for certain audiences, some of those long shots and there's a lot of moments without dialogue, and I think some people might be a little put off by that if you can't deal with a slower pace.
Even if you're just not in the mood
for
that,
if you're
it
not
might
in the
be
mood.
hard.
Be in the mood for a slow movie.
Yeah, it's a little lethargic, but in the same way, that's what it's strongest.
Yeah, that's the selling point.
Yeah.
That's a feature of the movie rather than, a downfall.
So if you're just not in the
shortcoming.
mood for that, if you're just not in the mood for that,
yeah,
slower pace of a movie or more lingering movie,
yeah,
because that's what makes a movie good.
Yeah,
is that.
Yeah,
like without that, I probably wouldn't have liked the movie.
Right. And that's really the success of the movie. If you can be that abstract and that, and have as many sort of issues on a specific script level that things aren't coming across to the audience and still have an accessible, good movie, then I think you've really done your job. Now, if you want to watch this movie but you don't know anything about the crimes, I highly suggest listening to the Case File episode about the case. It's easy. The movie is pretty easy to enjoy either way, as long as you're not, thrown off by long scenes without dialogue or something like that, or storytelling through visuals. But I feel like the experience was richer having known the details of the case. Again, the name of the podcast is Case File, and I think it's just called the Snowtown Murders or Snowtown. In that, like I said, it's one of the most prolific, infamous cases in Australian history, so there's probably a number of other podcasts about it, but Case File has a mood and theme that I feel like if you're interested in horror, that might appeal to you a little more. That said, of course, this is obviously going to be very graphic, and it's true crime, and they don't go into the most detail of any true crime podcasts that I listen to. I do listen to a number of them, but they don't mince words. So if you have trouble hearing about real things that happened, just maybe watch the movie, or maybe not even watch the movie. I had one more question before we went, and that was, did you feel like this was a horror movie?
Oof. That's a tough one. Mm-hmm. No / kind of.
Yeah.
Like
certainly the situation was horrific.
Yeah.
The level of, I mean, I won't say what I'm going to say, but it definitely has a strong theme of, I felt like, psychological horror because of the situation.
And then that it's based on a true story.
Yeah. And like I said, it's pretty dang accurate.
Yeah, it's tough to say, especially with the circumstances and the accuracy.
Yeah.
Accuracy of the movie makes it hard, because
right.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre was based on real events.
Ed Gein, right?
Yeah, but that's very inaccurate.
Right.
It
doesn't feel real because it's not real, because it's not
based. Yeah. It's based on it, but
right.
It's very unfactual. Very, very unfactual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hence why they didn't call it the Ed Gein story or something like that.
But yeah, this, from what you say, says it's very accurate and horrific. So
it is, yeah.
So it makes it harder to be like, oh, that's horror, opposed to crime,
right?
Drama.
Yeah. I definitely never got the idea that it was necessarily a crime drama. It doesn't feel
it's not dramatic in the same way you might think, but it's definitely about a true crime, and there's definitely drama in the situation.
Yes. Yeah.
So, I don't know, it's...
But they don't have those, the mayor is breathing down my neck,
yeah,
blah, blah.
I know, but
sort of
that's
scenes.
not necessarily...
No, and that's good. That's what I enjoyed that about it. It's almost a biopic, but for an entire community.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Uh-huh.
It's more in the, like, true crime serial killer type of movie. I'm trying to think of another horror-esque movie
That's similar
that's similar, but I'm having a hard time thinking of anything. It's probably more like a Summer of Sam or Zodiac type of movie, and less in like the horror genre, maybe like just a notch not.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, indefinitely, but with much of the detective nonsense cut out of it.
Yeah.
It doesn't do that. I feel like I like crime dramas, which is funny because all of that stuff is to me the most tedious part because it's all the same.
Yeah.
All the, detective stuff and, oh, they almost caught him, but they didn't and blah, blah, blah. That I find sort of tedious. So this is kind of the best case scenario for a crime drama for me, specifically at least one that's about a murderer or a serial killer.
Well, most of the time crime dramas deal with like the police or the people trying to catch them. Yeah. This isn't that. This is kind of the other side of that.
Yeah, which is really sort of interesting. I appreciate
it's more with the crime opposed to the people trying to catch the people doing the crime.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not like likable robbers that you're kind of rooting for, even though they're like terrible people.
Like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Yeah, like
something.
Bonnie and Clyde, like anything kind of like that. This is not that. This
is totally different. I would say that there are definitely elements of horror here. I think that calling it a straight horror movie would be incorrect. But I think that given the circumstances of everything that happened, and I think they give enough detail about those circumstances on, in a vacuum without having known anything about the case, I feel like there were enough details to realize just how horrific these are. And I think that is really the truest form of horror, is just showing a mirror to, like, look at these people, look at what look at what humanity is capable of. And for what reasons, and for, I feel like it's not a horror movie, but it's not a horror movie. I feel like it's not a horror movie is the best descriptor that I personally can come up with.
Yeah, it's not what you would expect from a horror movie.
No. But again, it's got very good tone and atmosphere. I think that would be appealing to horror fans. Yeah. There's definitely some graphic violence. Mm-hmm. There is definitely elements of psychological horror, many elements of psychological horror. And the acting is really good. I think the acting fits very well for those atmospheric horror movie fans. So, did you have anything else you wanted to say about this before we go? Okay, well, once again, that podcast to listen to for this one before you watch it, if you'd like to, is Case File. There, again, are probably any number of other ones, but I really like Case File. And it's done by an Australian team, so they probably know their shit. They sort of probably know the cultural impact that it had, being that they lived there, which is something you can't always capture in true crime, always, if you weren't a part of the community. So I think that's our show. If you enjoyed this, please like or subscribe wherever you found it. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, although I don't do anything on Instagram. And you can share this podcast with your friends through Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, and also now Google Play. Google Play, I think you can download it just like you would a music file, so you don't need any specific podcast app. It'll just show up in your normal stuff. So if you know somebody who doesn't have a podcasting app and want to give this to them, just send them to Google Play. I don't know if the title is searchable, but if you go onto my Facebook or my Twitter, then you can find a link to Google Play. It usually takes about 24 hours for the link, or for the podcast to become searchable. So, thank you so much for listening. Sam, what's your rating for Snowtown?
Oh, my Snowtown rating?
Yeah.
I give it 10 Templars.
10 Templars.
10 Templars.
10 Templars.
Yes.
Okay, 10 Templars.
10 Templars. Yeah.
All right. Out of
Templars. How many Templars are there? Nobody knows. That's the point of the game, right?
Thousands, I think.
I
10
don't know.
Templars.
Throughout the years.
Yeah.
It's a
tens of thousands.
It's a reality within reality. Oh, they're so smart over there. Assassin's Creed, it's so good.
Okay. Anima system out.
End of session. Desynchronizing agents.